They think that if they start hormones, everything is going to get better and they will feel like they did when they were 25. I've been in practice for 35 years. Listen, guys, it's not like that. No one's ever explained to them, this is why it's hard and here's how you fix it. How in the world is she going to take care of herself?
I've got Dr. Wendy Warner here today. Very excited to jump into women's health hormones. Wendy, you're an MD. You've studied herbal medicine. What don't you do?
I do it all, actually. I mean, I did conventional OB-GYN. I do functional medicine. I teach for the Institute for Functional Medicine. I teach for an herbal school. I've been done training in energy work because, I'm interested in all of that.
I love this. What was the evolution of that? You started off, I'm assuming, as a medical doctor, and then you just started to realize that there were some gaps, or tell me about that.
I did conventional OB-GYN for 14 years. Everything that I trained to do in residency, attended births, the whole thing. And it's so corny. I tell this story all the time. Early in practice, I realized I had like the world's worst PMS. And my business partner fussed at me because I chewed out a staff member one time. And 3 days later, when I got my period, I apologized. And, he said, you can't keep doing this. Well, I was trained as a conventional GYN that I was supposed to take Prozac every day for the 3 days out of the month that I was a pain in the neck. And I went, no. So that sort of got me started looking at herbal medicine. And I kind of got started with energy medicine. And it kind of I was still doing conventional medicine, but learning all this stuff on my own, because we're talking in the 90s when nobody did this from a medical standpoint, from the medical doctor standpoint. And then I eventually broke with that practice and started my own integrative functional medicine practice, and it kind of went from there.
Amazing. I mean, it's very interesting. I don't know about how that was for you, but my first study was focused around biosciences, health science. And then I went and studied Chinese herbal medicine, and I was like, I had to unlearn everything I'd learned. I was like, what are they talking about? That's not even what happens. And then what are they talking about? That's not even what happens. How is it that you've been able to bring together, and I'm assuming that now being able to marry all of that together, what you practice is kind of a hybrid.
It is. And it's really kind of cool because I can say, okay, what language do you want me to use? I can tell you the biomechanics of what's going on. I can talk about the conventional treatment. I can talk about getting to the root cause from a functional medicine standpoint. If you'd rather not use supplements and you want to use herbs, we can do that. Or do you want to really talk about what's going on in your energy body? You can sort of meet people where they are, which is kind of cool because if you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, you don't have to, hit people over the head with the same hammer.
This is very, very true. You mentioned, obviously, PMS and taking something, and that didn't sit well with you. It's really interesting because we're in this world where I don't know how you reconcile that it still feels very much this or that. And bringing them together at times must feel challenging, or people challenge you. I guess the nice thing is you've got all this learned experience. I feel like you're literally the one person, you're like, don't argue with me.
Okay. Yes, I know what works, but what people can incorporate into their lives is a whole nother story, right? I mean, I'll tell you what people do. We'll come up with a full plan and, people will change their diet usually. They'll usually exercise, or at least try to. They'll usually take their supplements. If you ask them to do any stress management, that ain't going to happen for a while. I mean, eventually they're going to figure out that you're going to have to, or the whole thing isn't going to really work very well. You just have to kind of keep offering things to people and just explain to them, it's hard, but you got to do it.
I think you're right. But I also think that as you start to, in my experience, as patients start to feel a bit better and they're just doing the bare minimum, then you can start to have those conversations about the stress and the nervous system and the energy body and whatnot. But starting out there is probably not most people's way. And I think it's nice for people to hear that, because I think they look and they think, I'm going to go and see someone like you and it's going to be so much work. It doesn't really need to be. It's layers.
It's layers. And the problem is they don't realize it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, right.
Tell them, at the first visit, it's easy because I'm just gathering information and I send them off to do labs. And it's during the second visit that we're making the actual plan, because now I have some lab work to show them. And that's when their eyes start getting big. Because I'm going, well, we need to address this and then this and then this and then this. And I've learned to just say, listen, I know it's a lot of homework. You're not going to do it all at one time. I wouldn't either if I were in your shoes. And I have a health coach who works with me who will sit down with them and go, okay, I see where we need to go. What works? Where do you want to go first? Because she is much better at that than I am. I am much more, we always joke that I'm the what and she's the how.
And that's so important to have that too. I'm sure you see the value in what she brings or he brings. I didn't actually check that. As much as the value that you offer as well. Like, it's so important to get those pieces. It's the everyday stuff that really has to be dialed in, because they're those small habits that you're creating. At the moment, the hormone conversation's huge. And there's so much conflicting information. In your opinion, what do you feel are the biggest myths or misunderstandings around hormones that you want to set the record straight on?
Okay. Right this minute, and it's only happened in the past year or two, maybe year, everybody comes in thinking, well, first of all, they want to blame everything on perimenopause. Everything. No matter how old you are, 35 to 65, they want to call it perimenopause or menopause. And they think that if they start hormones, everything is going to get better and they will feel like they did when they were 25. And listen, guys, it's not like that.
The noise is strong for this, though. There's so much noise out there. Women are really feeling the pressure. They feel like that's what they have to do. This is the conversation they have to have.
I'm glad that we're talking about menopause, because my generation, I'm 65, and my generation, we didn't really talk about it much. And it was almost like, I don't know, we were the folks here in the States that were, we wanted to be equal, which meant we had to be quiet about any female stuff because we had to fit into the patriarchy. And so we just sort of did our menopause fairly quietly. And then the people that are just younger than me, unfortunately, hit menopause during the Women's Health Initiative time, when everybody thought hormones were horrible. So they just were told to suck it up. Now everybody is going, you're right. They're saying, oh, well, aren't I supposed to talk about hormones? Shouldn't I be starting these? I mean, I literally, okay, here's two good examples. I had a 36-year-old patient the other day who's only skipped 2 or 3 cycles. She's gone through a major life change.
That'll do it.
And she's calling because she wants to do a visit because she wants to talk about hormones because she's missed a couple of periods. And it was actually, she was stressed out enough. She was actually getting kind of hot at night, which will happen. And I had to explain to her about how hot flashes are stress and blood sugar, really. It's not really estrogen or lack thereof. And I had to sort of calm her down. And then I had another patient who's a couple years past her last period. And she's having some vasomotor symptoms, but not horrible. Her main complaint is she wants to lose weight. And I went, oh, and starting hormones you're going to help. I mean, her blood sugar's crazy and she doesn't exercise. I went, yeah, starting hormones, it could be good for all of these reasons. And I went through all of the reasons she might want to start them. I said, losing weight is not on that list. Right. That's a lifestyle problem. So they, you have to sort of make it, I'm having to rein people in to understand what hormones can actually do. I mean, I think they're great. And I think that I'm glad we've got all this research to prove that you can help protect your brain function and your bones and your heart and all of those things. But it's not all about the hormones. And that's like the top layer. It's the bottom stuff that you need to do first.
And that's, I think, the hard part is that many health providers won't go there. They don't necessarily see that to be their job, or that's not just part of what they offer. So it's not any wonder that women it's a huge disservice, because they're coming in and asking for hormones, and that's what they know. That's their job. It's to prescribe medicine to help someone.
And if you're here in the States and you're in a conventional practice and you've got 15 minutes to talk to somebody, you don't have time to talk about lifestyle. You have time to write a prescription.
So this is, how we've ended up here, right?
Yeah. I have to ask you, because I know that when you post on social media, I will often see you say things like, do this first and then maybe talk about hormones. And I kind of say the same thing. Do you get pushback on that?
So much pushback.
Because I do.
So much pushback. I don't know if you probably didn't see. And I love it when you comment. You're always there. And I'm like, oh, when you commented, love this. I woke up a couple of months ago and I'm like, what happened overnight? I didn't know what had happened, but something had landed somewhere because there was just all these awful comments coming through on one of my posts. And unfortunately, someone who's very loud in the industry had reshared my post. And basically the post had said, stop blaming poor lifestyle on your perimenopausal symptoms, which is exactly what we're talking about. This doctor that had shared it had said something like, we need to stop listening to wellness influencers like this woman that doesn't know what she's talking about. And so then all of her people came over to my page. Of course, all of my people went over to her page.
Sure.
And eventually the post got taken down. I reached out to her and I just said, thanks for opening the conversation. It would have been really nice for you to message me and we could have had a conversation about this. You've taken it out of context. But she didn't acknowledge the post and she didn't respond. But the funniest part was then I went and grabbed all the negative comments and I made the funniest content out of it because it was like, imagine I'm just sitting here in my sauna and these people are saying, this woman's dangerous. She shouldn't be doing it. And I'm just in my sauna sitting here. I say this all the time and I'm very much open to, I would never tell someone not to do something. It's not my job. Right? And it's not my job to prescribe hormones either. My job is to help the women that can't take hormones, that don't want to take hormones. There's a whole category of women out there that aren't taking hormones for various reasons. Mm-hmm. What are they supposed to do? Just sit out there and suffer? No. As you know, there's certain things that we can do, especially Chinese medicine's great for this. You
Absolutely.
Can really help with a lot of the symptoms, and that's what we learnt to do. So I feel sad for the women because women will come and I'm sure they come to you and they say, I'm taking hormones and I feel awful. No one looked at you properly. No one looked at your blood work. No one looked at your genetics and I think genetics are going to become the next big thing that we start to look at too, right?
Oh, it amazes me that people never even think about it. Well, first of all, as a conventionally trained gynecologist, I wasn't even trained to get blood work before I start hormones or to follow hormones. Now, I've been trying to figure that out. I started practice in 1990. So back then, it kind of made sense that we didn't get labs because I was going to be writing a prescription for Premarin and Provera, and there is no lab test for that. So why would I get blood work? Okay. But then when we started using bioidentical hormones, one would think that it would have become practice to check those things because we're now using hormones that we can test for. Now, the testing is problematic. I mean, there's no perfect test for any of these hormones. I actually do an entire hour-long lecture for the Institute for Functional Medicine on just hormone testing and how problematic it is. And you got to match the type of test with the type of hormone delivery system. But if you're not going to be looking at even blood levels, of course you're not going to think about genetics. I don't run genetic testing on everybody because that gets too expensive. Put them on what appears to be an appropriate HRT dose, and they don't feel good. And I can't find any other basic labs that explain it. I'll check their genetics and go, oh, well, so you don't methylate, so you're not actually getting rid of your estrogen. And oh, look, everything's going down this one pathway that's really bad for your health. Let's fix that. That's why it's not showing up in your blood work.
Totally. And I've gone down this rabbit hole personally. So I think this is why I'm even more passionate. So then what do? We sit here, we don't sit here and suffer. That's what we're here to sort of help women, meet them where they're at, adjust things accordingly. And that's, I think, what that type of precision when you're sitting with someone and you're really listening to them and you have time as a practitioner. That's the hard part you're saying also. And also when you get more time, obviously that costs, in Australia at least, it costs the patient more money. It's a bit of a vicious cycle, but I do think it's worth investing. I always think it's worth investing in our health. It's at the end of the day, how are you waking up, how are you feeling every day? But yes, this conversation about lifestyle, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing. It's the foundation. And like you said, everything else is up here when it comes to helping support your body in a way that it's working optimally.
And it makes me a little crazy when, when I teach for the Institute for Functional Medicine in their hormone module, we spend hour after hour after hour talking about the basics and sort of getting blood sugar and stress hormones and all of that working. And then we spend a little bit of time talking about hormones because ultimately that's the icing on the cake. And I get so irritated when a person that I know took our module contacts me later and says, they're talking about trying to get the hormones under control. And then I realize in talking to the practitioner that they never worked on the blood sugar or worked on any of the other stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, she's still waking up. She's not waking up hot anymore, but she's still waking up because her cortisol's off and her blood sugar's off. She's still not going to be happy. She's just not hot anymore, but she's still waking up.
I think the other thing too is so many women feel so awful. And so this is to your point, they go and they get their prescription for whatever they're being, and often, again, it's not being checked. So they're just blindly being prescribed something. And they feel that like 10% better.
Yeah.
Which is actually probably a lot. And so they're like, oh, great. Okay, this is working. I feel better. And then not doing anything else either and thinking, okay, well, this is how it's going to be. I spend most of my time regulating people's nervous systems, their stress levels. Like that's where I spend my time because once I get that figured out, then everything else is better. So your sex hormones are following the lead of everything else.
I also like to point out to people that nothing's going to change if nothing changes. Meaning if you live your life like, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but here in the States, oh my God, a midlife woman, she's trying to stay busy at work because the youngsters are coming along and trying to force her out. She's caring for her older parents. She still probably has kids in the house. There's all of these things. And she has all the emotional, and I don't mean to rag on guys, but it's true. Most heterosexual couples, the woman is doing at least the emotional work of all the jobs around the house, because they're reminding their partners to do their part. If you take someone that busy and nothing shifts in her lifestyle, how in the world is she going to take care of herself? I actually make people do this. I make them write down, I ask them to write down every single thing they do to run their household, like everything they do every day, every week, every month, seasonally, all of that, and then divide it up and basically, if you don't like doing it and you're not good at it, somebody else has to do it.
Excellent.
Get rid of as much as possible. A friend of mine made me do that one time, long time ago.
We shouldn't be doing what we're not good at anyway. And normally what we hate, we're not good at either. My husband does the washing. I'm not good at it. Does he do it like I'd like it to be done? No, he doesn't, but that's fine. That's another discussion.
Someone else is doing it and he doesn't have to be reminded. That's the important part.
That's right. He loves it. He actually has joy. He finds great joy doing it. It kind of drives me a little bit insane. We'll be out somewhere and he'll be like, it's going to rain, there's clothes on the line. We need to go home. And I'll be like, what?
That's actually pretty awesome. That's pretty
I know. My question here is also, because this is where I wonder. There's women taking hormones that can tolerate and should and it works. There's women that can't. I kind of get concerned. Are we going to end up in a position like we did with birth control and kind of go like, oh, there's all these women that probably might and shouldn't be taking it? Like I have concerns around this and I don't have the answers. I don't. I just am curious. Because now this push and the safety, it's not necessarily safe for everyone, but we're told it is. Am I wrong here? Like, should I not be concerned about this?
It is safe for the bulk of people.
Right.
There are a few people that it's not safe for. And here's where, I'm much less concerned these days about a family. I'm basically not concerned these days about a family history of breast cancer or even necessarily a personal history of breast cancer, because the research on estrogen's impact on breast cancer is becoming less and less and less concerning. I've got patients who've had breast cancer. They're several years out from their treatment. They're miserable and they're taking low doses of estrogen and progesterone, just enough to keep them comfortable. I'm not trying to get them on high doses. They don't need high doses. They just need enough to be comfortable. There are people who should be very careful with hormone use, mostly because of their genetics and how they metabolize them. And if I can identify those people, then they can be on it and be healthy, because you can still use the hormones, but maybe add in some supplements and things so that they metabolize it in a more healthy fashion and not put themselves at risk or anything. I do have lots of people who are, 10 years past their final period. They're in that group that here in the States got told, nope, suck it up. And now they're reading about how wonderful it is. And they're saying, okay, haven't had a period in 12 years. can I start hormones now? Because my mom was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I go, yeah, that boat has sailed. You're past that point. So I'm having to go through the research with people and saying, listen, if you're going to get the preventive benefit, it has to happen pretty early on. Now you can start hormones at any point and help your bones, but depending on your medical situation, you might actually be causing trouble with inflammation and that sort of thing. And depends on also the form of hormones you're taking, and it gets detailed.
Are we talking about a lifelong from that point on?
Oh,
that you
right.
would be taking hormones forever?
And that, I really don't know what to say. I was smack in the middle of weaning people off of hormones because, we used to wean people off at about 10 years. I was smack in the middle of weaning a couple people off. They wanted to take their sweet time stopping it. And then all these studies were coming out going, maybe we can stay on them forever. And so I've told those folks, well, there's not any big rush to get off. And they're thrilled because they wanted to, they want to go to their grave with them. But I always say to them, I don't know though, does it really make sense to be taking estrogen when you're 85?
I love your honesty because you're like, I don't know. And I think that's really important to be able to say that, because I think there's a lot of practitioners saying, yes, that's what's happening and that's good. But I'm like, based on what? We don't even know. We don't know.
I don't know how much of the research you look at, but there was a paper that got published last year. It was based on United States Medicare data, meaning every single person was at least 65 or older. And they were looking at prescriptions for any kind of hormone at all, and then diagnoses and what happens to those people. And the conclusion of the study was any form of estrogen taken for any period of time lowered all-cause mortality, meaning absolutely anything that could kill you, there was less of it. And that included vaginal estrogen. My colleagues and I looked at each other and went, well, vaginal estrogen, you don't even get a systemic effect. So how could it affect all-cause mortality? What probably happened there is that's a statistical error because, these are women who, to get their prescription, they're seeing practitioners on a regular basis. So maybe things are getting picked up.
Or they're just thinking that this is the greatest and I've got estrogen, so I'm fine forever. It's like their superpower. It's a placebo.
It's placebo, and I'm okay with placebo. I'm perfectly okay with placebo. And maybe because they're having, they've got good vaginal estrogen and they can have better sex, it keeps them happy, and happy is good for your life.
Healthy for longer.
I have no idea. But that paper confused me. A lot of people are using it as we can stay on hormones forever.
Time will tell, I guess.
Oh, listen, I've been in practice for 35 years. The hormone pendulum has swung back and forth so many times. I just laugh and I say to people, listen, as of right now, you can stay on hormones forever. I change in a couple of years. Who knows?
We've touched on at the very beginning, the conversation around perimenopause and menopause is very loud, very, very loud. And we sort of started talking about how women are thinking that every symptom is they can blame perimenopause for. At what point do we actually start to go, okay, this is menopause, this is perimenopause? Like, we need to have the proper conversation, not the fluffy conversation. I guess the point is highlighting that it's not an illness.
That is actually, I'm finding more and more a difficult conversation to have with people. I ended up going through the change younger than I expected, way younger than other women in my family. And I was kind of pissed at the time, actually, because I thought I had more time to not worry about it. And it was before the data on hormones came out. And so I sort of said, okay, I'll do Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And because I was working with an amazing acupuncturist in my practice, and I'll just tough it out. And I kept telling myself, well, it's all about imbalances. So if I'm feeling symptoms, then it tells me I'm not taking care of myself. And I used it as like a barometer of how well I was taking care of myself. And I did the great, I try to get people to do this all the time. I tried to get stuff off my plate because I was too busy.
Yes.
I had a busy medical practice. I was working for 2 nonprofits on their board of directors. I was doing this, I was doing that. And I just started calling people going, nope, can't do this. I'll be back later. I've got stuff going on. And I had to sit down and decide now is the time to take care of myself. And I tell people now all the time, the only way to get through menopause gracefully is to learn to say no.
And
women are not good at that.
was your experience in doing that? I mean, you got nothing. You actually do have things to compare it to because you've got patients, I guess, that you've watched. You went through that process.
Yeah.
And you survived.
I survived. I had a year where there was one winter where the idea of wearing a turtleneck was totally not on the table.
Right.
Just wasn't going to happen. Now, I was also dealing with an autoimmune condition that was brewing at the same time. So, I mean, it got a little complicated. But it sort of taught me to be, and I explain this to patients, it teaches you to be a little more flexible and take better care of yourself. And that in the long run is good for our health. It was a little bit easier because I'm my own boss. I didn't have any kids in my house that I was raising. So, I mean, I had it frankly was a little bit easier for me than the average person I take care of, I have to admit. But it's still doable. You just have to decide to do it.
And I think also understanding that the changes of hormones, I think, is really important because for so long we've blamed it all on estrogen.
Yeah.
But we know it's not just about estrogen, especially for those women in perimenopause that are talking about the symptoms. And I think there's a lot of confusion around symptoms too. Like in perimenopause, it's really common to see night sweats before the period. Women feel that their night sweats before the period are actually hot flushes, and they're not the same thing. It's probably not until you've had a hot flush that you can go, oh, wow, they're very different. I don't know. I haven't had a hot flush yet. I look forward to those. Do I look forward to it? No, probably not.
No, you don't look forward to it.
It will happen at some point.
You don't look forward to it. If I ask somebody, have you had any night sweats? And they go, I'm not sure. I just laugh and go, well, then you haven't had any. Because trust me, if you've had some, you will know. Yes. Or the person who gets confused because, a lot of us do that heavier periods closer together for a year or so before you actually start skipping. And they're going, wait, I'm confused. I thought it was supposed to get lighter and easier. Why is it getting harder? And you have to explain about ovaries that are getting older don't always ovulate, so you can't make progesterone. And, I think I am just amazed at how little we've taught women about how their bodies work.
From the get-go, we were talking about this before we press record, from that, not even teens. I like to say to women, we need to have the conversation with kids when they start asking about, their body and where they came from. And this beautiful conversation just becomes this evolution over many, many, many years. It's not then embarrassing. It's not like a big weight gets dropped on you when you do get, first start menstruating. But this is, I guess, something that used to happen that doesn't happen anymore because we stopped talking about it.
Well, and when I was a teenager, my mom's generation was not used to having birth control pill access. So when, my mom's generation understood that, if you have a bad period, there are some things you can do. And it's, and she kind of talked us through it. Current perimenopausal women, when they were teenagers and they had bad periods, they just got thrown on birth control pills. So they've never learned. No one's ever explained to them, this is why it's hard and here's how you fix it. And so they don't understand how to do it. Plus, most of them these days had been on birth control pills or some form of hormonal contraception for the bulk of their adult life. So they're not even used to their own hormones on a regular basis, much less during perimenopause. And they were never taught the skills or the understanding about how to make it better. So they can't help themselves. And of course, that means they don't know what to do with their teenagers, which is why such a large proportion of girls, like, no kidding, 2 or 3 bad periods, and they're thrown on birth control pills. And then 20 years later, when they go off the pill to get pregnant and they still have weird periods, they want to blame it on the pill. It's like, no, you never gave your body a chance to fix all of those connections.
It's so true. That's how we ended up writing Beautiful You, was because I was writing a book about fertility and then I'm like, this is actually, we're missing the step before this.
Yes.
Really educating mums, I think, is so important because they didn't have that education. It's spot on. Like every other woman's story had terrible periods or acne or missing periods. It's a classic. So prescribed birth control in their teens, decided they wanted babies in their 30s. No one told them that what to expect. I think also to your point, that's where we're coming at life with deficiencies, discrepancies irregularities and hoping that there's some magic pill that you can take to fix that.
Yeah.
It takes time.
And no one wants to hear about all of the things that mess with your hormones that are in the environment, the cosmetics, the plastics, all of that kind of stuff. Nobody wants to talk about toxins. That's too complicated.
It's actually really funny. We did a masterclass about toxins, and it was a low tox masterclass. Everyone wanted the guide, but no one wanted to buy any.
See, I just want to read. I don't want to change anything.
It's so funny. Also, to your point there, it does feel very overwhelming. It's like just change one thing at a time, find a better option. It doesn't need, otherwise it's expensive, it's stressful. Like my aim in life now is to be as least triggered, stressed, overwhelmed, whatever, as possible. I've been telling this story lately about how at all times I try and be a 1 or a 2 out of 5 when it comes to stress levels. It's been very interesting because it's just been a simple decision. I haven't had to do anything. I haven't even delegated anything. I haven't given anyone else anything to do. I've just decided that for me to feel better, I need to be a 1 or a 2 at any given time.
But how is that working? I mean, how do you go from being upset that somebody just said something or something just happened to suddenly, like, you can't just like get rid of it?
No, I think I did. I just decided it's not worth it.
Oh, okay. All right. I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's like it's not worth being stressed. Or am I stressed because of something else? And then I'm just bringing that into everything that I do to get a job done.
And that's a piece that I think a lot of folks don't even think about. They forget.
Or they've watched their mum be so wired that they think that they've got to be the same.
Or all of their friends have the same experience, and so they think they're normal, that they get stressed out at work and they're upset by their boss and their coworkers, and so they come home and they take it out on their kids and their partner. The other thing I have to try to explain to people is self-care is not a mani-pedi and a massage. I mean, those are fun things. I'm not downgrading them, but that's not self-care. Self-care is, please just go sit with your cup of coffee in the garden and look at your hummingbirds for 10 minutes in the morning. It's free.
Sunlight, some vitamin D, some UV light, like
some
great.
Quiet,
it's free.
Some nature, like how hard is that? And do it. And I try to tell people it's the consistency of that kind of stuff that's important. I mean, it's great if you get a chance to go on a vacation. It's great if you get a monthly massage, but you need a day-to-day thing to keep your head above water.
I've got another question for you. And I feel like a lot of people get very confused about, and you're definitely the person to answer this. Can you explain the difference between supplements and herbal medicine?
Oh, okay. Awesome. I love this question. Okay. Let's start with pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals they can be really good. I have not thrown away my prescription pad. I don't write many prescriptions, but I do write some. They are strong and single-focused and almost always come with side effects. And you just hope that the side effects are worth whatever the benefit is you're getting. Okay. And they can be really helpful for certain things. Supplements are single-focused things that usually only have one action. And I'm thinking like a vitamin or a mineral or something like NAC that's a precursor to glutathione, but it basically has one action and it's something you take. Now, herbal medicine, plants are the most amazing things in the world because we can't reproduce what they do. They have hundreds, thousands of chemicals in them. And so they will have multiple actions, which is also why people get real confused because I take care of really smart people. And when I make a suggestion for an herbal medicine, they'll probably go Google it, and that's fine. But then they may find that it's used for XYZ and I'm suggesting it for something else, and they'll get back in touch with me and I'll go, yeah. It does do that, but it does this also because it has all these other layers of actions. Used correctly, herbal medicine is awesome. It's slow medicine and it is not like hitting you over the head with a hammer the way a pharmaceutical does. But that also means, they can be dangerous. They can have side effects. I'm not saying it's easy across the board, but they're all different. And I use all of them.
I knew you'd like that question. But I also think it's interesting that often herbal medicine gets such bad publicity, yet if it didn't have, we see it can have amazing effects. We can see it can also have dangerous effects if it's not used properly. If it's not so powerful, why would it have dangerous effects? Why are there warnings? Like, why do we need to be trained? It's very intricate. The other thing, to your point as well, when you talk about how intricate it is, it's when you start to layer various ingredients together, then all of a sudden that changes everything as well. It's hard to explain though, right?
It is hard to explain. And sometimes I always love how at any given time, there's like an herb of the moment.
In our lifetime, maybe we'll get through half of them, not even.
Oh, for a while it was ashwagandha. Now it's kind of, berberine isn't really an herbal. And that's what cracks me up. Berberine is a chemical that is found in multiple different plants. And it has a gazillion different actions. But every herbalist I know just laughs that people are taking berberine as an isolated compound. You don't really absorb it very well because in the plant, it's there with lots of friends to help it get absorbed. Anyway, it's very single-minded how some people do herbal medicine if you're not trained.
Well, I think the problem is that we adopt the idea of herbal medicine being a medicine. So we get confused between a pharmaceutical medicine and a plant. And then we also go, oh, well, it takes so long to work, so let's just go here.
And here in the States, there's a couple of websites you can go to, databases, where you can find out if it's safe to use certain drugs and with certain herbs and that kind of thing. And invariably, when it is synergistic, you're told not to use it. Well, you can still use it. You just have to understand, like, you won't need as much of the pharmaceutical if you're using this herb. Or if you're trying to fix the side effect of that pharmaceutical, use this herb. It's not going to hurt the action. Unfortunately, a lot of those databases are written by non-herbalists.
Yeah. Well, what could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Oh, as we wrap up, I've got one more question, which kind of, let's tie a bow around all of this. There's going to be those women that are listening that are feeling confused and conflicted, and even maybe they're worried or scared about what their hormones are going to do, because we're all expecting the worst. Well, the majority of women are now expecting the worst because there's so much information, they're confused. What's one piece of wisdom that you can offer to reassure them that they're going to be okay?
Menopause is basically puberty in reverse. If you ask a woman when she hit puberty, she's going to tell you when her first period was, but there was a lot going on for years prior to that. Was it easy? No. Did it affect every single person around her? Yes. Did she turn into a whole new person? Yes, and that's okay. So with menopause, it's kind of the same thing. It's this journey. You're going to be fine because we're designed to do this. Is it going to be a little awkward and a little inconvenient? Yes. Is it going to affect everybody you interact with? Yes. Are you going to be a different person at the end of it? I hope so. I really do. I think that, trust me, you get to a certain point where you're far enough from your last period that you kind of look around and you go, this is like awesome, because I can be stable and I can enjoy myself and I don't have to worry about reproduction. So I can focus on creating in a different way. Your energy just goes someplace else. So it's actually really awesome to be on the other side. It's just a little tricky in the middle.
So we don't have to fear it. We get to embrace it. We get to have a rebirth almost, or a next evolution, or whatever we call it, the next version of ourselves.
Yeah, and it is literally a rebirth, and birth isn't easy either.
Wendy, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I've absolutely loved this. I'll put all of your details in the show notes. People can connect with you, and they should. Women like you are, at the moment, far and few between. So it's really nice to be able to chat and have a balanced conversation about something a lot of women are really confused about. So thank you so much for being here today with me.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the invitation.